Hello, my darlings, and welcome to Radio Wasteland, the greatest show about the paranormal, conspiracies, and all sorts of other stuff in the world. I'm your host, Chauncey Hallworth, and this is my co-host, Kara. Kara, how are you doing today?
Good. I love how sarcastic you look when you say "in the world."
Well, I don't know.
The listeners can't see your face, but I can, and it cracks me up every single time.
You know, I'm a generally miserable human being. I just, I loathe everything. I am generally sarcastic. I like to consider myself pragmatic, but my wife would definitely say I'm a pessimist.
Right. I don't think I've ever met a pessimist who didn't say they were a realist.
Right.
But the way they say it is like, I'm a realist. I was like, okay.
Yeah, life sucks. I'm a realist. And so
Prozac can help with that.
Today in studio, we have our buddy Jake.
Hello, hello.
And Jake is going to talk to us about Okinawa and Haunted Okinawa, but we'll start shooting the breeze first. Kara, do you consider yourself a positive person?
Yes.
I don't know. That's not very convincing, do you?
No, I do, actually.
You do.
I am an optimist.
Yeah, well, you're so young that, you haven't been crushed by reality
yet. It hasn't been
yet.
beaten out of me
Yeah,
yet,
we were talking about this online, that you need to be crushed by reality.
I need my dreams to be crushed a little more. Yeah.
What about you, Jake? Are you positive?
Yeah, I think so.
I think you really are positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's disturbing. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Makes me think you're up to something.
Hold on, let me grab my half-full glass of coffee.
Very clever. Very clever. So Jake is talking to us about Haunted Okinawa, and the reason why Jake is talking to us about this is Jake was in the military, and he was stationed over there, but even outside of this, Jake, your life in the military was incredibly interesting, and so tell people what your job was in the military.
I diffused bombs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is insane.
It was a blast.
Yeah, very funny.
I'm feeling punny today. I'm sorry.
Yeah, punnery, man.
Yes.
Puns.
We have higher standards on this show, Jake.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
We don't do puns here.
Yeah, that's the lowest form of comedy. But yeah, diffusing bombs. So it's funny because you can't see. We're on the radio.
Right.
But, Jake's like a big sort of built blonde guy with glasses, and you're very mellow. And I think that you were so mellow, they're all, hey, let's get that guy to defuse bombs.
I was kind of known for being a fairly even kill guy.
Right.
And I
basically
think maybe
Captain America on Ambien with glasses.
Right.
Now you know.
On Ambien. Yeah. Well, I wasn't that relaxed. But yeah, so it just kind of worked,
Yeah. So how do you get to be a bomb diffuser? I mean, what does that path look like?
They don't let you do it right away.
Well, I'm sure they don't.
So in the military, they basically tell you your job unless it's Special Forces or EOD. In that case, you have to have a history of,
violent behavior.
Well, no, just they want to make sure you're not a dunce.
Right.
So you have to do it for a few years, and then they say, okay, yeah, you appear to be an okay guy. I guess we'll give you this job if you want it. And at the time, they were offering a bonus for that particular job because so many people were dying or being injured that they couldn't keep it filled. So they had to actually offer additional money to fill those empty spots. And being a stupid,
indeed they should,
22-year-old, I was like, yeah,
right. And you thought that sounded just great.
Yeah, like why wouldn't I do that? I could die with a lot of money in my bank account.
Right. Yeah. And this was before you were married?
It was before I was married.
So that money would go to nobody but your parents?
Yeah. Look, Marines are not known for their forethought.
Right.
And I was just one of those kids.
Right.
Well, it's good because, who else would defuse the bombs?
So did you ever have one blow up on
that
you?
way?
No, I had a Soviet surface-to-air missile catch on fire while I was straddling it like a horse.
Like Slim Pickens?
Yeah. Didn't he have a cowboy hat on?
He did.
No cowboy hat. No cowboy hat.
So it caught on fire while you were on it. I'm sure that was absolutely terrifying.
It was, and I just doing what you do kind of it helps your prayer life.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So I'm on this thing and I'm sawing it open, and the metal of the case got too hot, got red hot.
Right.
And it fell inside onto the jet fuel, the rocket fuel, which was solid rocket fuel. It kind of looks like candle wax.
Oh.
And it smoldered. And I look at my buddy who's about 20 feet away, and we're in this Afghan. We're actually in a place called Conishin Castle. It's a gigantic clay castle built by, I think, Alexander the Great in the 17th century or something.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, it's way old. And
It's about to be blown up.
Yeah. Well, it's a huge place, so I maybe would have blown a wall down or something. But,
Right.
I look at my partner. His eyes grow as big as baseballs, and his jaw just goes totally slack because we both know what's happening.
Right.
We both know Jake's about to die.
Right.
A really horrible death. And my partner steps behind this giant brick wall to save himself. And I was like, okay, if this is how it ends, it's like you have a half a second to think. And I was like, okay, this is it.
Right.
And it stopped. And I thought, oh, surely, this thing is so old, all the nitrates washed out of the rocket fuel. So I carved a piece off, just like candle wax, it carves off. And we brought it about 50 feet away, and I lit it, and it nearly blew my desk in half.
Oh, crazy.
And so I was like, well, that was a miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a Pulp Fiction style miracle.
Yeah,
right
it was
there.
really
That's
something.
some serious.
The thing that really
Yeah.
sort of blows my mind when I hear that that's what you did is that it kind of seems to me like all these bombs would be wired and built differently. Are they all consistently built the same? I mean, how do you get training for diffusing what I imagine to be 1,000 different potentials?
There are millions of different potentials. It's oddly similar in principle. Every explosive chemical contains three things: something to oxidize, something to burn, and something to start
Take notes,
the
kid.
burn. Yeah.
Here on Radio
Likewise.
Wasteland, we teach you how to
Yes.
make bombs
Yeah.
on this episode.
Please don't call me if your kid blows his fingers off.
So, especially like an IUD, aren't you dealing with basically you don't really know what you got into? You're just well, this looks like a MacGyver built it.
So you probably mean IED.
Yes, IUD is
sorry.
actually birth
Oh,
control.
yeah, not IUD. Yeah, right.
IUD is a improvised explosive device. Yeah.
Also confusing.
No, so it's funny. These are not the world's most educated people building these.
Right, of course not. Yeah.
Simple builds. You've got some power source, a couple of wires, and a detonator made out of whatever they could get their hands on, and usually a nitrate-based explosive. So farming, same thing, Oklahoma City,
Right.
same kind of bomb there.
So, how often is it with these IEDs that you really just sort of cover it with something metal and just kind of blow it up without diffusing it?
Every chance we got. So, of course, we would never want to harm infrastructure.
Right.
And unfortunately, terrorists don't care. So they would put them on a bridge, not
I
caring
see.
about the fact that these farmers really need to use this bridge.
Right. So,
So in that case, we would have to diffuse it. If it was in someone's poppy field, drugs are really big out there. They try to protect their fields. We just blow that thing up.
I see. All right, you're listening to Radio Wasteland. We're talking to Jake Hinton. When we come back, we're going to talk about Haunted Okinawa. Thanks for checking us out. All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland. We're talking about Haunted Okinawa with Jake. You like that song?
I gotta say, I expect a woman in a motorcycle suit to come in and carve us all up with a katana now. Like,
Right.
I'm kind of worried, legitimately.
And I should add the Kill Bill reference. She actually had her sword crafted in Okinawa.
Oh,
That is
perfect.
true.
Yeah, in the movie.
Perfect connection. You know, I've never
That
seen
chapter
Kill Bill.
of the movie is called "The Man from Okinawa,"
Oh, that's
and
right.
oh my god,
Kill Bill 1 and 2 are the only,
I've seen a movie that you haven't seen.
are the only Tarantino
Okay,
movies I've never
let
seen.
us mark
What?
this occasion. Also, those are great movies,
They
and you
are
should really
great.
see them.
Yeah, I was kind of burnt out by the time they came out. You know,
Well, you've probably had enough of a break from Tarantino.
I have,
You can-
you know,
you
but
can-
I've lived a long life, Kara. It's It's sad. All right, so we're talking to Jake here about Haunted Okinawa. So Jake is a friend of ours. We work together, and like he came to us and he was talking about how Okinawa was like one of the most haunted cities and easily the most haunted base
Yeah.
out there. And so what spurred this on? Like you were set there, and so
Yeah, I have no idea why it is the way it is.
Weren't there atrocities in Okinawa? At some
Yeah,
point?
I mean, you could go. So first of all, anyone who doesn't know, Okinawa is an island in the Ryukyu Island chain. It's south of the mainland of Japan. And yeah, to go into what Okinawa is, it is the most interesting culture on Earth. So what they were actually a trading outpost. Even in World War II, they were called the Keystone of the Pacific, the largest island between many Pacific islands and Japan, China. And so they existed, this Okinawan kingdom existed as a trading route. They would make money trading between the Pacific islands and the mainland of Asia to the north. And so because of that, they have this hodgepodge of religions as this middle ground. And so they were heavily influenced by the Chinese, by the Japanese, and all the Pacific islands south of them, Filipinos, and all these other religions. And what they created is really, it's a very unique style of religion.
this might be totally off, but it's sounding to me like it's like the voodoo of the East. You know, how the Haitians was really this sort of stopping ground, and they really sort of took all these religions and all this stuff coming through and sort of invented this weird collection of religions.
You can't really find what they have anywhere else in the world.
Huh.
And so Taoism, I think, is part of it. And they uniquely have a form of ancestor worship. Mm. So it's like when you consider what we here in the West consider paranormal activity, right. a lot of that is around ancestors,
right?
People who have passed away, who are still here,
right,
in spirit. Okinawa is an entire place where ancestry worship is probably the number one religion in the area. They don't bury their dead. They put them in crypts. They're above ground crypts. They're usually small, modest crypts. And you would see a whole hillside that looked like just hundreds of these dome-like crypts that would have people's ancestors in them. Mm. They would visit those ancestors regularly. They would bring them food. Yeah. They would bring them food. And interestingly, if you had a bowl of rice, if you were eating a bowl of rice in Okinawa and you stabbed your chopsticks down in a bowl of rice, you would probably be kicked out of wherever you were. Mm. Very disrespectful to do that. You're supposed to lay it on the bowl. The only time you ever have chopsticks standing up in a bowl of rice is when you offer it to your ancestors.
I see.
Yeah, so they have that sort of thing going on. They also have a lot of, I brought some trinkets that I know our people at home can't see, but these are all, I brought some shisha dogs here. And shisha dogs are every single building I think I ever saw in Okinawa had a shisha dog. And basically, well, there's two of them. One to let the good spirits in, one to keep the evil spirits out.
Huh. So for those of you who can't see, which is everybody but the three of us.
Yeah. That's the only thing to bring to a radio show,
It basically looks like a clay pot, kind of like you would expect to find maybe alcohol in.
Well, these did contain alcohol.
Okay. And then it's got like a tied on, like a burlap sack on the top.
Yeah, so the actual shisha dogs you would have in front of a building would actually look something like this, but larger. Like the wealthier you were, the bigger shisha dogs you would have. These just had the better artwork on them. That's why I brought them in.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah. And actually, you'll notice my shisha dogs have a cross on them. So I actually bought these from a guy who was a friend of mine who was one of the fewer than 1% of Christians in Okinawa. And he knew that I was a Christian also, so he put the cross there. on his shisha dogs. But culturally, shisha dogs, he couldn't make any money selling crosses. So,
and I'm guessing that as the fewer than 1% Christian in Okinawa, I'm guessing that his Christian was loose.
Well, it's interesting with the internet, with technology.
Yeah.
There is a degree of pluralism in Okinawa. In fact, witch doctors also would call on Jesus, which sounds like crazy to us Westerners. Like, how could a witch doctor do that? But that's just the kind of pluralism that's going on there.
Got to cover your bases.
Yeah,
right.
you call on whatever God you want to call on, basically. But in cases where you can actually get the Bible now and in Okinawa in Japanese, and so.
Yeah, you're talking about the praise to your ancestors. I'm wondering if there's any comparison. I know you won't necessarily know, but the one time I went to Japan, I spent about a week in Kyoto. And I remember walking through the city, and, there's this sort of ornate archway in between two buildings.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just all like, oh, well, that's interesting. I'm going to go walk in there. And I walk in there, and I walk down this long alley. And at the end of this alley, it opens up to like literally hundreds of acres of cemetery wrapping up through the hills and stuff like that. And it was like totally beautiful. And I'm just all like, this is like in the middle of this city down this little alley, and this thing is just massive. I think they were mainly Shinto in Kyoto, But,
and there is some Shinto in Okinawa as well. Although I should add, so Kara, you brought up the fact that there were atrocities on Okinawa. That is so true. So if you take a look at...
Which I point out I only know because you told me like a really long time ago. Well, so really I'm reflecting your own knowledge here back at you.
Well, so first of all, they were a kingdom. They did have, combat as much as any other kingdom had to in their trade wars or whatever else that's been going on for several hundred years. But of course, most recently, World War II occurred. Right. And the Keystone of the Pacific, as we called it too, was a very strategic position. And during that period of time, if you've ever seen the TV show Pacific, it's a pretty good depiction of what went on Okinawa. A lot of that does take place on Okinawa. And in this island is relatively small, I think 50 or 60 miles north to south, 10 to 15 miles east to west. It's a small island. Maybe like 1.5 million people live there. And on the island during World War II, I think it was 20,000 U.S. soldiers died, 80,000 Japanese soldiers died, and 120,000 locals who were neither Japanese at the time nor, American died. Many of those because they would flee into the caves, and during monsoons, the caves would fill up with water, creating mass graves.
Right.
Furthermore, once the Japanese began to retreat, as they retreated, they were telling the villagers, if you don't kill yourselves, the Americans are going to come and eat you and rape you and do all these terrible things to you.
Right.
And so there's actually a famous video, one of the paranormal videos I'll bring up. It's on YouTube right now. And it's people at what are called the suicide cliffs, where hundreds of people committed suicide to avoid coming in contact with U.S. troops as they were advancing. And there's a video today showing, and it's kind of hard to say, is this video true? Is it not? Many people have claimed to see ghosts jumping off the suicide cliffs on Okinawa in modern times. So it's one of those paranormal areas where people often say, yeah, this is definitely a place where they see these past tragedies kind of almost like reenacting themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, we're coming up on our break here, but I wonder if you can answer this quickly. So I'm a little confused. At the time, Okinawa was not a part of Japan. I mean, they're obviously a part of the archipelago, but they were not part of the government?
Correct. It happened in 1985. The Japanese government took over Okinawa.
I see.
So very recent.
All right, we're talking about hauntings in Okinawa here on Radio Wasteland. Come on back. All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland. We're talking to our guest Jake Hinton about Haunted Okinawa. You got any sweet stories for us?
I do.
All right,
I do.
Make them scary.
Oh, and I should add, since I've come home, there's actually paranormal tours you can take now.
Oh, awesome.
Where you have like a tour guide taking you to all the paranormal places.
Right.
I missed out on that part. I guess it wasn't running when I was there.
It was
So the ghosts have sold out.
Yes, jerks.
Yeah, they probably have got a deal with the tour guides.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So you just show up in the room, noose around your neck, okay?
I
Something
get one soul out of each group.
Right. That's awesome.
No. Yeah. So we're on. Everyone knows about these crazy haunted areas. One of the most famous on Okinawa is the Haunted Hotel. The Haunted Hotel was being built. This is after World War II. There was kind of this, what do you call it? Like a renaissance of building and rebuilding.
Yeah.
And so this wealthy magnate decided, I'm going to build this really nice resort hotel.
I think it's called gentrification now. I'm joking. When they gentrify a neighborhood, it's when they come through and build it all. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So you can't use these big words in jokes with me.
Sorry.
Not that smart.
Sorry. Okay. I forgot you're a Marine.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. So he's building this hotel, and there's just a series of terrible things happening. People on the job are dying.
Excellent.
This guy gets terribly sick. His family befalls all kinds of tragedies, children dying. He finally gets so ill, he says, you know what, I'm done. I'm abandoning the whole project. And it was completely built. It just wasn't furnished, and no one wanted to touch it. The builders didn't want to touch it. People don't want to go to a place where everyone keeps dying. This place is just
right, yeah.
And all the people are telling these stories of ghosts and all these things. So it's just been abandoned there. I think for 50 or 60 years now. It's just been sitting
really?
there.
And nobody's come along with money and said, I want to make some money by turning this thing into a resort?
Nobody wants to touch this hotel.
It's probably generating money though right now as an attraction. Though.
No,
tours don't
so
make
you
that
actually
much money.
you actually have to sneak in. It's a condemned.
Wow, really?
It's a condemned property. You have to actually jump a fence to get there. So I had 5 or 6 friends of mine are like, hey man, it's Saturday night. Let's go to the haunted hotel and spend the night. We'll see if this place is really as haunted as everyone says.
Right.
So they come back. One of the guys has a bloody forehead, just like gnarly gash on his forehead. And I'm like, what? What on earth is going on? They're like, dude, this is the craziest thing. We go there. We decide they're going to sleep. They stayed overnight.
Ooh,
so while they're sleeping,
idea.
they're all kind of, walking around. And there's like graffiti and maybe like a homeless guy or two who's been living around. But generally, the whole place is empty and void.
Right.
And they start hearing noises. They start sensing and feeling like really cold gusts of air. And in Okinawa, the air is stale and hot all the time. It's gross.
Right.
But they're feeling this just chilling effect. And one of the guys was standing next to an empty pool, and he swears he was pushed into the bottom of it. And that's how he hit his head and gashed it wide open.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And this is just a few years ago. And so they're telling me this story. I'm like, dude, I guess it's a good thing I didn't go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just went to the bar.
Right.
I think. I don't remember.
Which is how you got the gash on your head.
Yeah. You should see the other guy.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. So
yeah.
I am just amazed that nobody came along and said, somebody from, a foreign investor didn't come along and say, we need to turn this into something.
Yeah.
And pump in people from outside areas and, to have something that large that is a...
And it is quite a facility, multi-level hotel resort. Just
That's
standing
like freakier than
in
the
the
Overlook.
jungle. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So on top of that, there's other areas. So every military base there has several gates, and of course the gates are where people get let in and let out. And so they try to keep those in relatively spread out areas around the base so that wherever you're coming from, you can get in using the nearest gate to you. I was on Kadena for about 3 years, and I was a Marine. Kadena is actually an Air Force base. I was a Marine on Kadena, just the way it happened to work out. And one of the gates there has been closed and abandoned since I got there. Unbeknownst to me, the gate guards actually just refused to report to duty there because there were so many sightings of ghosts. They couldn't get the people to go to work at the gate. And now today on YouTube, I love YouTube, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
There's actually several videos coming in because there's security cameras here, of course, that are capturing these shadowy figures run across the road. And you can hear the gate guards in the background like, oh, did you see that? What was that? And they'll be like, hey, watch the video right here. Watch this guy. And you can actually see these shadows going from one side of the screen to the other. You can see him stopping on the road. You can see him like crouching behind signs. It's really, really freaky stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's...
I got to say, this leaves me with mixed feelings about the Air Force. For one, the idea that somebody gets to choose just not to go work at the gate, I'd just be all like, get up there and work at the dang gate. You know, that's your job. And then for two, that I don't know, I'm weirded out about the fact that the Air Force is all screw it, man. We don't deal with ghosts. You know,
we're not the ghost force.
Yeah, so they've actually demoed buildings as well.
We do UFOs. We don't do ghosts.
Yeah, they've demoed buildings that people refuse to live in too on Kadena because of apparent hauntings. And yeah, if this happened in a Marine base, the first sergeant say, get in there, get your soul eaten. I don't care.
Right.
You do what you got to do.
Yeah, totally. Right.
Air Force was given bagels with a schmear.
You'd probably be a better Marine without a soul. You know, be more effective.
Yeah. Type 2, Marine Type 2.
Right.
Upgraded.
Totally. You're about to be blown up by that bomb you're straddling. You'd be like, I don't care. Yeah, that is awesome. And, you know, it's interesting that I'm not sure why there is such a big separation between the East and the West. I get it here in America. I get it. We're the new world. We're an island unto ourselves here in the new world. But you know, Europe is not so far from this stuff. You know, why is there such a massive religious and this big divide where we sort of view it as something like so foreign that we don't give it credence and stuff like that? You know, it's like once you get over there, I'm not sure if even what I'm asking is making any sense.
I think so. I mean, so this is a cultural thing for them. You know, it's where they came from. In the U.S., our culture is Western.
Yeah.
So, I mean, of course, we see everything through our cultural eyes, and they see everything through theirs.
Right. And I have to say, it's really cool that the internet, you know, like you were saying that you love YouTube.
It makes the world a smaller place.
It does make the world a smaller place, and it makes people like, you know, my daughter is obsessed with South Korea. She wants to go to South Korea real bad. She's all about Korean boy bands. And I'm just all like, it's weird, you know. But it's totally fine.
Have her talk to me. I'll convince her otherwise.
Why? I don't want to know.
Yeah.
All right. So, anything else? What?
Well, I mean, so what else would you like to know? I mean, I lived in Okinawa for over 6 years. Mm-hmm. I could go on about some other things as well. There's a lot of Okinawan lore surrounding some different types of religions. You want me to discuss those? Okay.
Yeah.
So I reached out to one of my Okinawan friends and asked her. She reached out to one of her friends who's a Okinawan historian.
Oh, awesome!
I actually got some fun information from them in preparation for that. One of them is the Kijimuna, and it's one of the most famous magical creatures, and it looks a little bit like a troll.
Uh-huh.
And I mean like the Trolls movie that we'd see here.
Oh, right.
It looks like it's kind of a big flaming headed thing, and the best way I can describe it after reading kind of what this Okinawan historian sent me is it's a chubby little child who plays tricks on people.
Right.
Yeah, it's not an evil thing, but it will unscrew your light bulb or something. It kind of plays very harmless jokes. It's a child and looks like a troll.
That is, yeah. I'm very easily blown away by how different a lot of this stuff is, and I just
they live
think
in the banyan
so cool.
trees. They live in banyan trees, and they come down and play these tricks.
Banyan trees.
Yeah.
When I went to Hawaii, banyan tree was one of the things that just blew me away because I saw a massive one with a hotel built around it because they just get huge. All right, you're listening to Radio Wasteland. Come on back.
Let's go booty booty. Say it, baby.
All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland. We're talking about Haunted Okinawa with our guest, Jake Hinton. Jake, can you tell us a little bit more about the sort of lore and the unique lore of the Okinawan people?
Yeah, so another really unique kind of religious thing that you'll really only find in Okinawa is the Hainukan, or the god of fire in homes. And so basically, the Hainukan is placed in the kitchen, and it's usually by the stove, and the wife takes care of this idol, typically in the family, and it would take care of it. It would clean it daily. You give it a glass of water every morning, and anytime a good event happens in the family, it's the Hainukan that you can, give thanks to.
Oh, really?
For something good that happened in the household.
Our religions here don't seem to be as involved. I was even raised Catholic, and there's some involvement there. You got confessions, and you got your priest coming through, swinging a burning thing of incense and stuff like that. It gets a little weird, but it's not. Yeah. It's not involved like this, like a lot of these Eastern religions.
Yeah.
Well, we had a Reformation, 400 years ago or whatever it was, and that really, as far as I know, the idea that religion is kind of something it's sort of about your inner life, and you read the Bible, you don't rely on the priests to tell you what to think and so forth. That all kind of changed after Martin Luther, kind of.
Yeah, it just seems like here in the West that Catholicism
and nothing
is
really
really the only one
happened in the East, as far as I know. I say the East, like.
Yeah, I realize
the history of Indian religion. Like, I know nothing about it other than that it's vast and huge. So.
Yeah, if you take a look at, I don't remember. There's a dime word for things people do for their religion, and I cannot remember what it is. You guys, is it?
Yeah, I don't know.
I cannot remember the word right now, but yeah, here in the West, like you were saying, the Catholics do have a lot of deep traditions.
Because as a kid, I'd get the ash, on my forehead, and I'd get that stuff.
Yeah, not as much in Christianity, but certainly, when you consider Eastern religions and Middle East religions, there's a daily kind of thing you go through.
Islam
process.
in particular, there's 5 prayers.
Yeah,
right. And it's weird
daily.
how, like I was saying before, how divided it is. I know it's not a PC word, and I'm going to use it, and I'll explain why. In the Orient, in the Oriental. So for you listeners, I'll tell you, the word Oriental means the eastern half of the globe. Mm-hmm. You are Occidental. So we are currently in the Occident, if you're on this side. So the reason why Oriental is not a PC term is because it encompasses so much, and you can't do that. But the word itself actually means something.
And to be clear, you're not an accident. You're a special person.
You are a special person.
Go ahead, Chauncey.
With your own needs and dreams. But it's just weird how different it is over there. It's like, where is the line? Is it the Transylvania Mountains? Like, where does it get so different?
It's really the ocean, right?
But it's not. Europe. Eurasia is like one continent.
Okay, yeah.
It's like, where does that line happen where we go from, crazy druids to crazy not druids?
Greek Orthodox religion is, as far as I know, very involved as well.
Yeah.
Russian Orthodox, very involved as well. So, as you go east, because like I said, it's the legacy of the Reformation.
Right.
It's a very uniquely Western Europe idea of of kind of the way we're used to religion being done.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I'm really happy that we live in a time where I can find it interesting. You know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, before you maybe couldn't find it interesting because it was taboo, and then you couldn't find it interesting because you couldn't find so much information about it.
And I kind of wonder about something else. Like 2,000 years into the future, are people going to look at the U.S.? I mean, we've found things to fill our lives with. We've created our own, I don't even know what you would call it.
No, I get what you're saying.
Religion,
Yeah.
I mean, consider the things we do on a daily basis that kind of make no sense.
How often a day do you spend in front of a light-up screen?
Yeah,
and how are the futures going to look at this?
So are they going to view this as like the religion of our time, and we're the crazy druids who had this daily routine that didn't actually do anything for us?
Well, I think about this a lot when it comes to aliens and my dog. I imagine myself.
That was the strangest beginning to a sentence ever. Continue.
I do. I imagine myself out on my front lawn waiting for my dog to take a crap, and like standing there, and then this UFO comes down, and the aliens come and say, "Hello, Chauncey. Nice to meet you. I noticed that you enslaved that small animal to the point where it can't take care of itself in order to make you feel better." And I'm going to be all, oh, God.
Well, so as you started that, I thought, well, would they think that the dog enslaved you because you are picking its crap up after it?
Yeah.
You're the one standing out there in your shorts when you don't want to be.
Well, that's like a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy when Ford's trying to meet the car because he thought the cars were the dominant life form on the planet. All right. Well, Jake, I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing all of this with it. I have known Jake for a while, and I've always thought these stories were just totally interesting, and that, frankly, your life as a Marine was incredibly interesting. I think you're a lot more interesting than you give yourself credit for.
I'm like a transformer. More than meets the eye.
You are more than meets the eye. Well, we really appreciate it. You got anything else for us to come on another time? Do you have any sort of like secrets in your life that we can squeeze out of you? Where else?
We
Where
talk
are
about
your bodies, Jake?
we talk about government
Where have you
conspiracies
hidden the
here too,
bodies?
right?
We do talk about government
Certainly.
conspiracies.
Yeah, if I came on that show, I would be black bagged within an hour. So no, I won't be back on the show. Sorry.
All right.
Like, Code Blue, Jake's on the radio.
Right.
Go get him.
Well, that's absolutely terrifying. We've had quite a few guests who basically tried to tell us that we should be careful that they were on the show, but I think you're the first one I've ever believed. You are easily the first one I have ever believed. All right, you've been listening to Radio Wasteland. Thanks for checking us out. All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland. You just got done listening to our guest, Jake Hinton, talk about Haunted Okinawa and the lore of Okinawa. Jake is somebody that Kara and I have known for quite some time.
This is true.
And, I've always thought him to be...
Right, he's got tons of cool stories.
Yeah,
so.
tons of cool stories of his military.
I'm happy we finally got him on the show here.
Yeah, I am too, But when he said that he wanted to do it, I'm just like, what, really? Like, I don't know.
He's such a straight-laced guy.
Yeah.
Just in real life. So it's like, you want to do a show about hauntings?
Yeah.
But, I mean, that was totally interesting. I loved it.
Well, he's like straight-laced, but also open-minded. Like, he's very structured and likes his structure and stuff like that. But he also likes to hear other people's crazy attitudes and ideas,
Right. Like, he's the guy who would be fighting zombies after the end of the world when the dead have risen.
Oh, totally.
Like, that's who you'd want sort of leading your party of stragglers as you make your way to the Winchester or whatever.
And the thing I love about him is he looks like your sort of stereotypical intellectual Marine. Right. He's big and buff and blonde and, wears dark Buddy Holly style glasses. He fully just looks like...
Right. It's like the designers of his characters were like, okay, he's a Marine, so make him tall and buff, right?
Right, yeah.
Oh, give him glasses, too. Slap some glasses on there.
That'll make him look smart.
Right. We need people to know he's also smart. So.
Right. Yes. I wonder how dumb people with glasses feel. Do they feel like they've been gypped?
I couldn't say.
They're just people are constantly asking me for help with their homework. But I don't know. I don't know how to help them. I just can't see real well,
Yeah,
you know?
it's hard to say.
Did you ever have to wear glasses?
Nope. I actually have very, very good vision.
No, I'm supposed to wear glasses,
slightly
but I
better
don't.
than.
I noticed Jared,
Yeah.
our producer, is not wearing any glasses, meaning he has not found his glasses that he lost.
Yes.
I was joking with him about this over at his house the other day, that's got to be the worst thing to try to find is your glasses when
Right.
you need your glasses to find your glasses.
An automatic impairment. To
Yeah, totally.
You just have to get lucky.
You do, and hope you don't step on them.
This it?
Like
Is this it?
like your stereotypical 80s sitcom when you're looking for them, or horror movie when you step on them, and you're, oh no.
Yeah.
I actually have done that, but
God.
my vision's not horror movie scary bad.
Oh, right. Well,
Were you assaulted by a werewolf immediately after?
It was a vampire.
no,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
I got this friend, Joanna, who, like, she's funny because she's like this really sort of pretty, like, shapely, long black hair and everything. And she wears contact lenses, but, you know, when she's not wearing her contact lenses, she has these glasses that are like literally bottle bottoms. And like she'll put them on and she's like that dude from Trailer Park Boys, you know, the eyes are just like
Bubbles.
bubbles. Yeah, like
Yeah.
bubbles from Trailer Park Boys, you know. they're
Instant
just-
transformation from Willowy supermodel into Professor Trelawney.
Yeah, totally. All right, well, that's enough talking about Jake.
Yeah.
All right, you've been listening to Radio Wasteland. Come on back. We got some political news for you. All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland. Sean,
Yes.
what news you got for us?
First of all, it's Kara.
What
Which is
terrible
gonna-
timing.
Yeah, it's going to make this next segment really ironic, right?
What a Trumpism.
We can edit that out.
No, let's keep it. It's
Okay.
funny
God, why you want to keep it in there?
because it pains you and that makes me
It
happy.
does. All right, shut up, Kara. Tell us the news.
Okay, well, look, we've got this new thing coming down the pipe from the Trump administration.
Yeah.
So, in a nutshell, well, you've heard about this particular piece
I
of
did.
news.
I was
yes.
catching it on the news on the way here. Yeah.
So, why don't you tell me real quick what you've heard about it?
What I've heard is that during the Obama administration, they expanded the definition of gender. That led to all the discussions about bathrooms and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. And now Trump is trying to redefine the issue of gender back to being a man and a woman.
Right. So before that, really before the Obama administration, this was not an issue that had ever even been brought up.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
the Obama administration's second term, to be specific. Like, he wasn't doing this back in 2009.
Yeah, when he knew he was safe.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you don't want to be 5 years early to that train.
Right. Or at least not at the time. You might now, though.
No, well, yeah. I would have loved to have been 5 years earlier, but that's that's another issue. So yeah, that's essentially what's happened here.
Well, other than a social impact, what is the impact that comes from that?
So that's a good question because I feel like a lot of people, trans people are going to see that and be incensed. Left-wing people in general are going to see that and just be like, okay, Trump's horrible. But, no one's really going to realize what that actually means. So this is the definition of gender for the purposes of Title IX, which is just a policy that affects laws governing discrimination in all sorts of arenas: housing, education, healthcare, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So a couple quick impacts. It strips away another layer of protection for trans people when you're talking about housing and employment discrimination.
I see. Okay, so
So-
let me ask you this. As an employer,
That's one thing.
As an employer, if somebody came in dressed all great and they had all the right stuff, but they also had a face tattoo,
Sure.
I could not hire them based on that alone.
Sure.
And so what this does is this puts transgender into that realm of I can just not hire you because I don't really like the way you dress yourself.
Right.
Instead of this is who you are. Like if you came in and I didn't hire you because you wore a yarmulke. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, we don't do yarmulkes around here, you know.
Right.
It
basically just makes it not a protected class as far as the federal government is concerned. Now, protections at the state level were already flimsy at best. Most states, in fact, the vast majority, have no protections whatsoever for trans people when it comes to employment or housing.
Does California not?
California does. Okay. California is a happy exception, as does Oregon, I think, a couple other states as well. But yeah, most people don't know that in most
cool states. You hear that? In Para X.
In most states, you know, if your landlord doesn't like that you're trans, they can kick you out of your apartment. You can lose your job for being trans in most states. Now, there was this layer of federal protection, which, you know, if someone were to fire you for that, you know, it would go to the courts and there would be this whole back and forth. This is essentially removing that other layer. Now, of course, it also affects things in schools. For instance, it will just make life even harder for, like, trans athletes in schools, people who have transitioned in school and want to use facilities appropriate with their the gender they're transitioning to.
Right.
So that's another thing. It could also affect healthcare. If all of your healthcare documents say your birth sex as opposed to your preferred gender, that's going to create bottlenecks in terms of, really anything in the healthcare
in the
realm.
case of healthcare, shouldn't it say that somebody is a trans woman or a trans man because the healthcare would be important to...
Well, sure, and it is important. That's why I'm saying it would create bottlenecks. You know, you have to redesign all these forms and so forth, and I can definitely see there being situations where it's like, oh, well, we're not going to pay for these breast exams for this trans woman because, you know, they don't need this many because their thingy says M. So...
Right, I see.
So
I was thinking more on a reconstruction level, not on a that level. That makes more sense. Yeah.
So, like, I don't even know if that would be an issue, but that's definitely something people are worried about because, you know, if you may have noticed, our healthcare system is already very complicated. And
I do know.
When you're trying to explain why you haven't gotten some benefit that you should have gotten to someone in Tennessee who doesn't really care over the phone,
right.
It's, you know, it just makes it even harder.
Right.
So yeah, there's a bunch of impacts from this that are not immediately obvious when you just think about, oh, they changed some definition. Well, good, I only think there's two genders. You know, people don't realize that, okay, no, this is making it much harder to be a trans person in America.
Absolutely. And I'm a person, I like to feel, supports the trans community. And I really, none of this stuff even crossed my mind because it's not in my sphere of anything. You know?
That's the difference. Like, I looked this up and I'm like, oh my God, is it even going to matter if I change my birth certificate now? Like, oh, what is this going to mean?
Right.
I've on the other hand, like, let's be real, for trans people, life is better right now in the U.S. than it ever has been anywhere in the world.
Oh, I'm sure.
In history. But still, it's just a reactionary backlash, you know?
Well, I mean, that kind of argument is saying, like, life is better now for blacks than it ever has been. Why don't they just chill out and let that be good enough? I mean, equality is the end-all goal, isn't it?
Right. Well, exactly. So my point is this is going to last. If this even goes through, they're still considering it. Mm-hmm. But if this happens, it's going to last, you know, a year or 2 years at the most. I would hope. I would really hope.
Yeah,
I would think, you know, as soon as we get a Democratic president in again, you know, this gets reversed. But really what we need is an actual law and not just the current executive branch
Well,
choosing
unfortunately,
to.
for there to be a law here, it'd have to go in front of the Supreme Court, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah.
And that's
Iffy at this point.
getting
So,
shadier by the moment.
Yeah, it's hard, but yeah, okay, what we
That small
actually
old
need
lady,
is
man,
a
she better not
constitutional
die.
amendment, but
That small old lady better not die.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we need a constitutional amendment, and here's why. Because I think it's already in there. You know,
well, I do too, but
this really kind of pisses
all it
me off.
takes is a couple conservative justices.
So I came into this conversation. What do we got here?
I was just, as I do when you guys are talking, flipping through my phone.
Okay. What'd you come up with?
It was just a headline here. It says Trump says transgender policy seeks to protect the country.
Yeah, but from what?
Right. I haven't the faintest idea, but
Yeah.
I assume it's referring to, just nonsense dog whistles about rapists in the women's
I
bathroom.
mean, if
or
we're going to
something.
protect the country, what I think we need to do is start registering jock bros, because really that's where most of the danger is coming from.
Yeah.
Jock bros. But, I went into this conversation with two questions, and you actually not only answered them, you made them moot with your explanation of this situation. But my question really was, how is gender even a factor in legality?
Right.
I just don't even understand it. One thing I like to say is I'm kind of irritated that the government views me different now that I'm married. I mean, the government should view me as an individual. He is a person.
Mm-hmm.
There's a person. The census can do all the stuff they want. That stuff's important. That's great. But the government should say, that's a person. Here's your list of rights. You're good. Get
Right.
on,
Honestly, I kind of agree. Like, for a long time, gay marriage has been kind of the goal of progressive LGBT politics, but the far left wing has tended to not be very happy with that, because what they want is just marriage decoupled from, just like what you were saying. They want marriage.
And I've been married for 14 years. I'm a very
decoupled
happily
from
married
things
guy.
in private life.
But I don't see what the government has to do with it.
Exactly. Which, honestly, I would prefer. I think it's great that I could marry a woman if I wanted to. Yeah. But also, I think that shouldn't affect anything. And there shouldn't even have had to have been a law about that in the first place. Now, I'm happy that there was, because I don't see all of our laws, kind of defining a married family as the basic unit of society.
Well, I think it's total just integration of religion, It's
Right.
like, the idea...
I don't see that going anywhere, but God, I wish it would.
Yeah, the idea that the government has anything to do with marriage, I got to tell you, nothing kills my erection like thinking about the government,
Yeah.
We don't, the government should not be in my marriage at all.
No, I don't know
Sorry.
about you, but when I want to get into the mood, I just think about Mitch McConnell.
Totally, man.
Just like,
Yeah.
Mitch.
Oh, yup. Yeah, totally. He looks like a turtle, like a terrified turtle, whose neck won't go back in the hole. And he's, oh, God, it's going to happen. Yeah, that dude. Every time I see that dude, I'm just like, man.
Yeah. This went from
this guy's wife won the BS lottery, because his wife's all like a sort of like normal looking human being. And I'm assuming when they got together, they were both normal looking human beings. And now she's all, oh,
yeah.
Look at this freak.
I mean, it's like the dark side in Star Wars. The conservatism, it just corrupts you over time.
Oh, yeah, totally. He's way Senator Palpatine. Yeah, he is totally.
Oh. So this just turned into from a nuanced social justice policy discussion into a juvenile evaluation of his looks. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, there are a lot of ugly Democrats. I mean, and just
That
terrible
is true.
names. What about Dick Durbin? What kind of
my
name
God.
is Dick Durbin? You got to change that business. That ain't right. That ain't right.
I can't argue with that. I won't.
Yeah. And then they just get weird names on purpose. Newt. Who's this new guy? Beto? That's not his name.
Beto
His name's not
O'Rourke.
Beto O'Rourke.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much more diverse than Beto O'Rourke.
Yeah, so anyway, broad strokes, I'm actually pretty upset about this.
You should be.
whole.
Are you making fun of my name? Chauncey? Chauncey Hallworth. They're both English.
Yeah, Jared just holds up a whiteboard that says Chauncey ? Written on it. So.
Totally, man.
Touche, Jared.
Yeah. Well, you should be upset, and I think everybody should be upset, because really, this is sort of the division that's going on in this country is like, the left is just they're taking our rights, and the right are they're taking our rights. They're taking your rights, and they're splitting people apart, and they're having one side back up the other side saying, it's cool to take those rights, and the other side going, it's cool to take those rights. It's like you're basically doing each other's dirty work.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't think the timing was a coincidence.
I don't.
I think this is red meat for the base right before the midterms, and who knows, they might not even do it. I hope. I really hope.
I just live in such California la la land, I guess, that I don't even, it's hard for me to even believe that there's so much, that there's so many people out there going, yeah, all those trans, we're going to put them back in their place.
Right. Well, I would think that, but then, I'm active in a lot of trans communities online, of course, and I know a lot of people who are in or from the South, and first of all, if you're a trans woman in the South, you have to pass as female. And you have to not tell anyone that you're trans. And then you can live a normal life.
Right.
If you fail to do that, then you cannot live a normal life in the South because people are awful. And if you grow up as trans in the South, well, forget it. Just get out of there. Get out of there and hope you get your hormones before the damage is done.
Right.
That's the reality. And I don't know how many people live in the South, but
I wonder how
a big chunk of the country. That's the reality.
I wonder how quickly a change will come along if this does happen, and if it puts people in danger by publicly outing them when they have been living.
Oh, see, I mean, this is already.
You get what I'm saying?
No, it's already happening. Increasing awareness that trans people even exist. We've been transitioning since the 1920s. That's when hormone therapy was created, essentially.
Is that what's that one movie? Eddie Redmayne starred in a movie first.
I don't know. I didn't see it, but
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, shoot, where was I going with this?
The girl with the pearl? No. Okay, I'm just shooting in the dark here. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. I can't watch guys play trans people.
Well, it's Eddie Redmayne.
Yeah, I know it's Eddie Redmayne, but it still bugs me.
Well, I mean, this is a oh God, we could talk about this all night because that's people playing trans people. If they can't, trans people should be able to play non-trans people.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, shouldn't they? They should, right?
My issue with...
I mean, as a dude, I shouldn't sit there and be like, what? That was border.
My issue with, guys playing trans people is they generally aren't very convincing. And, your mainstream audience who watches this movie is going to, again, come away with the impression of trans people as women, as guys in dresses.
I see.
Eddie Redmayne didn't go on hormones for that role.
Right.
He didn't spend 2 or 3 years speaking in a feminine voice every single day.
So in the case of not...
it's not convincing enough is my problem with that.
That's a good point. So what about... so people were upset about Felicity Huffman, but you feel that might have been a better sell.
I don't actually know who that is.
She was an actress. Trans America. Her son is... she was born a man, becomes a woman, and ends up reconnecting with their son, and they sort of take this road trip.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't have as much of a problem with cis women playing trans women who are
I get it. That makes sense.
In their transition, because that's much closer to the actual reality. And okay, a lot of trans women don't pass. I don't always. I usually do. But
yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying there. I totally get what you're saying there. And this is a rabbit hole that we could discuss all night because there's obviously a lot I don't know, and I would love to know, but we're coming up here on the end of the show, and so we're going to have to call it that. Let's pick all this up online. Have a good evening.
Pick a bee.